This is the Chery Tiggo 8 and it's the cheapest 7-seat SUV you can buy in the UK. But is it any good? So, who or what is Chery? Well, Chery is one of China's biggest car companies, and they're also the owners of Omoda and Jaecoo, which we got last year. So you've got the Jaecoo J7 and the Omoda 5 and E5. But now they've decided to bring their main brand over here, which is of course Chery. And they're starting with two models. This, which is the Tiggo 8, and a slightly smaller one called the Tiggo 7. Now, slightly confusingly, the Tiggo 7 is 5 seats and the Tiggo 8 is 7 seats. Anyway, so this is sort of China's equivalent of like the Nissan X-Trail, Hyundai Santa Fe, that sort of thing. It's a D-segment 7-seat SUV. Difference is, this is a lot cheaper than an X-Trail or a Santa Fe or a Peugeot 5008. Now, I'm going to skip talking about the exterior design of this car because really, who cares? It's a cheap 7-seat SUV. But I'm going to talk about the interior. So let's talk about the design first of all. I mean, this is quite nicely laid out. You've got this really high center console here with a couple of cup holders and a mock Mercedes flippy bin in the middle with an absolutely enormous amount of space in there. That's really good. You've got space for two phones here, one of which has a wireless charger. And then you've got this 15-point-something inch massive tablet in the center, which looks a little bit like it's trying to be a Tesla Model 3. And if you actually try and interact with it, it is very Tesla-ish in the way that it looks. Everything is quite pleasingly designed, I would say, apart from perhaps slightly naff background of, I assume, the universe or some rocks. But on the whole, it is all really very nicely designed and pretty easy to use and reasonably responsive too, he says, tapping away while nothing happens. It's just as well it's responsive as well, because a lot of stuff that you want to control about the car is buried in various menus here, including the heating and ventilation, which is a little bit fiddly. I'd have preferred some buttons, but what can you do? You even need, if you want to move the wing mirrors around, to go into some sub-menu in here, which I cannot actually find to do that. Oh, there we go, rear view mirror adjustment. I need to hold the brake pedal. There we go. Right, and then I can use these to move the wing mirrors around. I mean, that's a little bit frustrating, but it's no different to what Tesla does, I suppose. In terms of material quality, things are pretty good. So Chery says that something like 70-something% or 80% of the plastics above your knees are soft touch, and they are correct. They are all pretty soft touch and all pretty nice. I'm not an enormous fan of this suede effect that they've got, because it sort of looks like suede but doesn't feel anything like it. It's more like a wetsuit. All the switch gear is all pretty pleasing as well. I mean, I don't love these. These are pretty cheap. And there's a little bit too much gloss black on these buttons on the steering wheel for my liking. But beyond that, there's not really much to complain about. In the back, similar story. Materials, all pretty good, all pretty much the same as up the front. They haven't put any nasty ones back here where you can't see them. Legroom, it's all right. I would say it's not as spacious as a Peugeot 5008, something like that, because this seat is in my driving position and I'm 5'11" and I can just about fit behind it with a little bit of room. But at least there is somewhere for my feet, and you do have a nice flat floor. You've also got a couple of vents here, which is quite helpful. Heated seats in the rear and a couple of USB ports down there for charging phones and whatnot. This particular row also slides back and forth, although mainly forwards, and reclines quite a lot. Whoa. Wow, okay. Slightly less luxurious is what it's like in the 2 seats in the boot, as I will now demonstrate. So, release that lever. Oh, 2 feet there. Shut the door behind me. And then, oh, do you know what? Actually, that is surprisingly roomy. I mean, I'm not sure I want to do a long journey back here, but considering I'm a full-sized human being, this is not half bad. Boot space is pretty good too. There's a little bit of room with these seats up and loads of room with them folded down. Can I get out now? All right, so what is the Tiggo 8 like to drive? Well, I'm in the Chery Super Hybrid, which is of course the plug-in hybrid version, which comes with a 1.5 litre turbocharged petrol engine, somewhere up there, and an 18 point something kilowatt hour battery to help things along, buried under the floor behind me somewhere. And it's quite a chunky battery for a PHEV these days, certainly one at this price. Chery says you can do 56 miles on pure electric, which beats quite a lot of its rivals, apart from the MG HS, which does have a slightly bigger battery and manages to go a little bit further. But it's not half bad at all. What I would say is you barely hear the engine at all, which is exactly what you want in a hybrid, obviously. So the way that this particular hybrid system works is a little bit like Nissan's e-Power or Honda's, whatever they've called their hybrid system, in that the engine, the 1.5 litre engine up there, most of the time is just a generator. So it just generates electricity to put in a battery, which then feeds an electric motor. But, a bit like the Honda system, some of the time it does also act as a motor straight to the wheels. How it does that is very complicated, so I won't really get into it, but there's a sort of CVT gearbox buried somewhere in here. What you don't get though is the traditional CVT every time you put your foot down. And that's partially because this system always keeps a little bit of power in reserve. So right now, for example, I've got 24% of battery left, and that's pretty much as low as it's ever going to get. The idea being that when you suddenly want a boost of power, the car isn't left hunting around going, I've run out of battery now, I'm going to have to get the petrol engine to do some work. And thus, you still get instantaneous acceleration without all the horrible whining noise. Chery are very, very proud of this whole hybrid setup. They've developed it themselves, and they say it's the most efficient hybrid system on the market. Now, when we think of efficiency, we kind of think of miles per gallon. They're not really talking about miles per gallon. They're talking about thermal efficiency of the engine. So this is the most thermally efficient engine in the world, apparently. And the efficiency of all the bits in the hybrid powertrain itself. Whether that actually translates to great miles per gallon on the road remains to be seen. But it has all the makings of a very good plug-in hybrid setup. Now, this is the same system you get in a JQ7, and that's not a terribly well-reviewed car. But, in fairness, some of the criticisms levelled at that have not really been about the powertrain, it's all been about the way it goes down the road. So, the real question here is, have they improved things a year on after its launch? And the answer is kind of. It's not the most engaging car in the world to drive. Let's start with the steering. So the steering is a little bit artificial and a little bit kind of, particularly around the centre, hard to know what the wheels are really doing. It's very sensitive. So you sort of drive along a little bit like an American in an old film doing this to try and keep it going in a straight line, which is a bit odd, but you do sort of get used to it. What does seem to be much better compared to the JQ is the ride. So, alright, this still leans a little bit in corners, but again, it's a big car set up for a family, so it's tall. That's kind of how things are going to go. But the ride quality is actually pretty good. I've been really surprised with how this deals with lumps and bumps and potholes and all sorts of horrible bits of tarmac. And then speaking of comfort, well, I'm not overly enamoured with these seats, to be completely honest with you. They're very firm, even though they're sort of quite squishy. When you're sat on them, it feels, I don't know, it doesn't feel like a nice plush car seat somehow, even though they look like they are. And for me at least, it's not got a huge amount of support. The other thing I would say though is the driving position does put you in mind of a slightly taller and bigger car than this perhaps is, because I've got my seat in the lowest possible position at the minute, and this bit of me is not very tall, but it feels like I'm staring out of the road from, I don't know, like an old Land Rover Discovery or something. I've got a, well, all right, the positives are I've got a really good view out, but if you were much taller than me, let's say you were 6'2", you would be up here in the ceiling, brushing the sunroof. As you might expect for a Chinese car, there are a few strange quirks here and there to get used to. First of which, strangely, is this rear view mirror, which I don't know if you can see with my magic camera sunglasses, but it's a little bit like looking in a hall of mirrors at a fun fair. Everything's very, very far away. Most of what I can see in my field of vision are what the two people behind me are doing, which is not really much use. I kind of want to know what the cars behind me are doing, but they are about 3 million miles away in this mirror. It's very strange. The other thing, which I can't really demonstrate doing 40 miles an hour, is this gear selector, which on the face of it is very normal, because it's just the same sort of thing you'd find in an old Mercedes or a Renault or anything like that. But it's a little bit slow on the uptake when it comes to wanting to make a quick manoeuvre. So, in fact, let's perhaps demonstrate this. So, here I am about to do a 3-point turn on my country estate, and it's in drive at the moment. So I'm just going to check my mirrors and then turn like this and then quickly pop it in reverse. No, I'm in neutral. Reverse, reverse, reverse. Please God, reverse. And then back I go again. And now I'm falling off the edge, so I want drive. Still not going in drive. Drive, please. There we go, drive, lovely. It's just a little bit not quick enough. And it's those occasions where you just want to do a quick 3-point turn and there's traffic coming towards you that you're going to find that really infuriating. So, should you buy a Chery Tiggo 8? Yes, I actually think you should. And I haven't driven the non-PHEV version yet, but this particular Chery Super Hybrid is actually really impressive, particularly when you consider this is 10 grand less than something like a Peugeot 5008 plug-in hybrid. There are a few quirks and some things where you would think this is clearly not a European car that's been designed for our roads. So, I don't know, if for some reason you're after the best handling 7-seat, 4.7 metre long SUV, no, this is probably not the one for you. But if you're after something that's reasonably comfortable, pretty refined, spacious, and has lots of kit, take a look at the Tiggo 8. For more videos like this, don't forget to like and subscribe to Car Test Lab. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.